So, when do we want the particles to deactivate? Well, let's say after the particles have emitted for a few seconds or whatever, we want the steam to deactivate. So basically, we walk up to the door, the steam starts up, fires off for a few seconds, the door opens, and then the steam stops and it starts to kind of dissipate and vaporize in the air. And then we go through the door and we leave, and the door closes behind us. We're done. Beat the game. We're finished. Now it's ready to play part 2 of this crazy game. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to take this deactivate stuff and I'm going to move it up here. And what I want is, I want basically, when the door starts to move, when the door starts to open, I basically want a timer to start and tell Unreal, okay, the door started to open. In about 3 seconds, let's go ahead and turn those particles off and stop emitting steam. That sounds like it would work. So we know that the door movement's being controlled by this timeline here. We know that this update over here is actually what's setting the new location for the door. So every frame or every moment of time, this door is being moved and being slid down into the open position by this door movement timeline, right? So we could use update and plug it here, and that would allow us to do what we need to do. But there's a problem. If I do that, now I got to plug this in here, and that's not exactly what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to take this update and I want to be able to plug it into multiple things. Unfortunately, if I do this, that's not going to work because we can only update one thing at a time. So we can't just take this and plug it into 5 or 6 different nodes. That's not going to work. So it looks like we're stuck. Well, not quite. There's a flow control node in Unreal 4 and Blueprint that allows us to handle specifically this type of problem. So let me show you what that is. I'm going to take this update and I'm going to let it go out here into empty space. That's going to bring up my Blueprint contextual menu. What I want to search for, and you probably won't know this at first, but I'm going to show it to you, is something called a sequence node, and it's under the category of flow control. So I'm going to click sequence, and it's going to create this sequence. What this sequence allows you to do is it allows you to take one of these execution pins, the white ones, and break it up into several different execution pins that can then be plugged into different stuff. So now I can plug this guy into the sequence node, and then I could split that into deactivate and into the set relative location. And what it's going to do is it's first going to send this guy out, the first one on the top, to the deactivate, and then once that's done, about a millisecond later, it's going to send this one over here. So it happens instantly. As far as you and I are concerned, it happens at the speed of light. It happens so fast, it looks instant. You won't be able to see, you know, one and then the other unless you set up like a delay of 4 seconds or something like that. So now, when the door starts to move, starts to update its position by moving, it's going to go ahead and deactivate the particles. And it's then going to go ahead and it's going to go ahead and do this. Set the relative location of the door to the new position. Alright. That looks like it might work. Then again, it might not. This is kind of a thing where you have to kind of play around with this and kind of think about what you're doing here. And I'm starting to realize this might actually be a mistake. Not using the sequence node, but just the way I have everything plugged in. And I'll explain why in a moment. Okay, so anyway, let's try this out and let's even see if this works at all. Because the first thing that we want to see is if our crazy idea works. So no particles, run into trigger. There's the particles. Now the door starts to open and the particles should deactivate. There we go. They deactivated. Cool. So the particles are so slow that it looks like there's a delay. even though they got deactivated as soon as the door started to open, the particles went ahead and, it looked like they were on a delay, like they turned off a few seconds after the door started to open. So that's pretty cool. That works pretty well. Let me jump in here again. I want to test one more thing. So we know that the particles work. When you walk over here, the particles turn on, door opens. Now the particles are turning off, so the steam goes away. Now I'm going to walk away from the door. The door should close again in a few seconds. There it is, closed. Now I'm going to walk over and see if the particles work again. There they are. They're working again. So now the door opens, and the particles are going to go ahead and turn off. Cool. Nice. That works really cool. Alright, so it did work. But there is one issue here that I'm looking at this just because I understand Blueprint. The problem is this update is happening every tick. So think of it every frame or whatever in Unreal's, time-space continuum. This thing's being updated. So you're getting the signal being sent to here. So this deactivate is being turned on all of the time. Okay? And we might be able to see that if I do this. If I take this and I do like a print string, I'll just let it say hello. It's going to be kind of creepy, but that's cool. I'm going to jump in here, go up to the door, particles start up, and look at that. It's telling us hello over and over again. Basically every tick during that timeline, it's saying hello, 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 hello. So this thing's basically going deactivate, 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 deactivate every single tick. In this case, in this specific tutorial case, it's not going to cause a problem. It's not going to make the computer catch on fire or anything like that. But if you have a complex game with a lot of different pieces of code flying all over the place, especially if you're doing networking or multiplayer stuff, this can be unnecessary overhead. Why would you want to keep firing off this information every single tick? And yeah, there's no point in doing that. So we basically want to fire off the deactivate one time as opposed to a billion times. So what I'm going to do is, let me get rid of that. Sequence node is what I want to use, but it's in the wrong place right now. So I'm going to disconnect that, disconnect all this stuff, and I'm holding the Alt key and clicking on those pins. I'm going to keep this update right here because that's what I want. What I want to do instead is probably over here. What I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to stick the sequence node. So I'm going to take this delay, plug it here, and then the sequence node is going to control all this stuff. So here's what's going to happen. When we go into the trigger, we're going to activate this particle system, and we're going to activate it a few seconds late, or we're going to wait a few seconds after. I'm sorry, let me do that again. When we go into trigger, we'll activate these particles immediately. After the particles have become activated, which will happen in a split second, we're going to begin a delay timer to stop the door from moving too soon. Remember that, based on the steam delay, which is set at about 4 seconds inside of the level. After the delay is finished and the few seconds or whatever have passed, we want the door to open as usual. So I'm going to take the second pin, plug it in there. But we also want our particles to deactivate. But if we take this, bring it over here, if we deactivate the particles, the moment that the door starts to open, then we're going to, well, they may not deactivate too fast. It may actually work well. So let me see how that works. Let's try it out. There's only one way to find out, by testing, right? Just jump in here. Particles start up. Door's going to open, and then the particles should turn off. So door opens, and the particles, there we go. They're starting to go away, and they're gone. If I back away from the door should close. I think the delay for the door is maybe a little bit too long, and there's no particles. If I come back to the door, there's the particles again, Door should open. There it is. The particles should go away about now. And there they are. They're gone. And we're good to go. So I just tested it. It looks like this door works perfectly fine, or the way that I wanted it to. Cool. So this works out better because now, if I do a print string on this, compile that, jump back into here. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. We should get a print string once when particles, there it goes. See in the top left, the hello? The particles got the signal to turn off. The switch got flipped once instead of some little kid flipping the light switch over and over and over again really, really fast for a few seconds. That's how you end up with broken electrical in your house. Okay, cool. So now it works the way that I want to. Instead of having this deactivate being triggered over and over and over again like crazy, we have it triggered once. We get the door to open and do all its cool stuff, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Yeah, this blueprint is pretty much done. So one last thing I want to do is I'm going to go to this guy. I'm just going to touch this up a little bit. This this timeline curve, the door track float right now, I kinda don't like the way the door opens. It's too linear, like it's too straight and stiff. So I want to make it a little bit more organic and give it a little bit of weight, like if gravity's pulling down on it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy, hold down Shift and click the last point. Now I'll right click, or actually it looks like we won't be able to do both at the same time. So just right click on one and go to Cubic Auto. Then I'm going to click on this one, right click and go to Cubic Auto, and that's going to make the curve nice and soft. So what I can do is I can grab these handles and I can move them like this. And the cool thing about that is I can control the way that the door appears to move. So I can make it move really fast at the beginning and then slow at the end. So let's see what this gives us right here. I'm going to save this, jump back in here, go to my door. Door's going to, it moves really fast and then it slows down toward the bottom. And if I come out of the door and look at it, it should start up a little bit slow, see that? And then it speeds up when it reaches the top. 2 seconds is actually too fast for that door. I would probably set that door to maybe like 4 seconds. Take the last point and set the time to 4 seconds. And this will give the door an appearance of moving a little bit slower, which is actually what I want. And that looks pretty good. Let's jump back in there. Let's walk up to this door and get it to open. So it really slows down right at the end. See that? More like a mechanical sort of door. And then when it closes, it'll start up kind of slow and then speed its way up to the top. So that looks a little bit more natural and realistic as opposed to how it was before. And again, just select these points, right click, if I can get to them, and select one of these different modes, because by default they're set to linear. You want to set them to like cubic. Auto is pretty good. Yeah, I would probably stick with that. You could try locked and break. If you ever worked with animation software like Maya or something like that, this stuff will probably be pretty familiar to you. If not, that's how you use it. So this is a really small blueprint, pretty straightforward, nothing really complicated about it, but should get your feet wet with Blueprint and get you kind of going along your way. Now there's a ton of different nodes in Blueprint to use. What you'll have to do is read a lot of documentation, experiment, go on forums, ask people how they're doing their stuff, and just slowly start to learn what you can program with Blueprint. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this set of videos. This was a lot of fun to set up. It's always fun to explain this stuff and demonstrate to people how this stuff works. Yeah, have fun with Blueprint. Don't be afraid of it. Blueprint's your new best friend when it comes to video game development. Play with it, enjoy it, understand it, and you'll get better at it. I guarantee it. So take care.